to do my meditation in words and silence, but I can do that now, as it's very, very important. It contains the poem that Donald Hall wrote for the New Yorker originally. Whenever possible, I like to read two versions of the same story, a children's version and an adult version. Also, before I start, I've really got to thank everybody for the work that they put into making this happen. It's hard. Labor Day weekend, we should be taking a break and not having to work hard on stuff. Well, thank you so much for doing that. So here's the original Oxcart Man poem. In October of the year, he counts potatoes dug from the brown field, counting the seed, counting the seller's portion out, and bags the rest on the cart's floor. He packs wool sheared in April, honey and combs, linen, leather, tanned from deer hide, and vinegar in a barrel, hooped by hand at a forge's fire. He walks by his ox's head 10 days to Portsmouth market and sells potatoes. And the bag that carried potatoes, flaxseed, birch brooms, maple sugar, goose feathers, yarn. When the cart is empty, he sells the cart. When the cart is sold, he sells the ox, harness and yoke, and walks home, his pockets heavy with the year's coin for salt and taxes. You remember it was wintergreen candy in the book, but this is salt and taxes. And at home by fire's light in November cold, he stitches a new harness for next year's ox in the barn, and carves the yoke and saws planks for building the cart again. What a lovely portrait of work well done and a year well spent in healthy, productive labor. It's a perfect poem for Labor Day. Let's return to it soon and work our way inside more deeply. We'll be back in that poem in just a moment, but first I want to go back in a little bit into our lives. Maybe you reached sweet 16 and had never been kissed. Maybe you hadn't met the right person or weren't even thinking about such things yet, but one thing's for sure, you were starting to think about your driver's license. At least you were back when I was 16. All of my friends were. None of them were what you would call car crazy like some kids, but they felt the pull of increased mobility that the car could confer on a licensed driver. We didn't have a shopping mall in our town. The nearest one was closer than the Oxcart Man's 10-day walk to Portsmouth. But still, it was too far to reach on foot unless you planned to camp there and go home next morning. I wanted my license, but was not overly eager for it. Shortly after getting hers, my sister had damaged our dad's car by dragging the side along the "May I have your order" intercom box at a fast food place. I remember that horrible scraping sound that seemed to go on forever as the white door creased and lost its paint. Shortly after this, our father suddenly died. And then, after a few months of getting fattened up by my Italian grandmother, my uncle's family had taken us in, and I dreaded doing damage to his car as I started driver's education. He ran a gas station when those still did most auto repairs, and sure, he could fix it, but how would I live it down? Still, he was insistent that I go ahead and complete the process after finishing driver's ed. Some of my friends who cared much more about driving had taken 2 or 3 times to pass the test. Maybe because I was less invested in it, I was a little calmer, though my heart was hammering when the examiner, a huge scary man about whom I'd been warned, "Better hope you don't get that guy," pointed out a couple of minor mistakes I'd made. And then he said, "Okay, go get your license." My uncle had driven me over, but now he offered to let me drive us home. I felt pretty drained, so he took the wheel instead. "So what are your plans for the weekend?" he asked. In my altered state of consciousness, I wasn't really sure, so I said, "I don't know. Maybe I could borrow the car and go to the mall or something," forgetting that the gas station was open that day and he would need the car. But he said, "No, that's not what you'll be doing. Starting Saturday, you've got a job." He needed someone to work the drive, to pump gas, pull cars into the service bays, pull them out and park them, maybe even drive a customer home and then go get them when their car was done. That person had to be able to drive legally. That person now was me. How could I say no? My uncle and aunt had been so kind to take me and my sister in when they still had a daughter at home, to add us to their family and care for all our needs. I wanted to help them with this work, and I quickly grew to enjoy it. My friends at the time were the high school poets, artists, and rebels, all from white-collar homes. I acquired a certain cool that came with wearing my blue-collared gas station shirt with the name Ron over the pocket. Everyone called me Ronnie, and I enjoyed this alter ego. When my Craig shirts finally came in, I always found reasons not to wear them. I loved being Ron when my friends came for gas. Being Ron gave Craig a rest after all the changes that kid had been through. I wish I'd kept my Ron shirts, but this tag will have to do for now. Can I fill her up for you today? I also enjoyed the work. Even though it paid $1.69 an hour, even when it became full-time over the summer, 10 hours, 6 days a week, 15 hours if a night shift guy got sick. We had a contract to service the town's police cars, and I enjoyed meeting the cops, some of whom had also worked at my uncle's station when they were younger. I enjoyed meeting guys from the other side of the law, guys who knew guys, who did all sorts of things. I was offered expensive hi-fi equipment at a very low price. "But you got to take 50 of them, Ronnie. Keep one, unload the rest, and make some real money for a change." My well-bred suburban friends loved the stories, and I loved telling them. But most of all, I loved the way the work made me feel connected. I'd lived as a sort of a white-collar kid myself until I was 15. My dad had started out working in his father's barber shop, an immigrant from Italy, but then he became a lawyer. How could I have helped him with work like that, or even understood it? Same thing for my friends. So I felt like the lucky kid. I saw how helping my uncle helped the whole household, the economy, and the spirit of our home. For the broader community, we helped keep the police cars moving in pursuit of the outlaws, who also bought our gas and sometimes tried to sell us stuff they'd stolen. It all connected. Not quite like it does for the ox cart man and his family, but better than anything I'd known before. It's a feeling that's hard to come by. That's why the ox cart man's story makes me both happy and sad. My heart aches with longing at the perfect economy in the life of that family. They care for everything, yet they are attached to no one thing, just to their life together. Materials and animals are flowing through the household constantly. Grow the crops, make the goods, take them to market in the cart pulled by the ox, sell them, sell the cart, sell the ox, walk home and start the process all over again. Everyone contributing, everything coordinated. How could you say no to work like this? But how can you find such work these days? A few years back, I met an amazing guy named Carson who teaches bow making, this guy. to students from around the country and sells his handmade custom bows around the world. I was delighted to see how his kids played around his workshop, how they understood what Daddy does and could see how he does it, working at a shave horse just like the ox cart man's. One day, they just might do it too. Who knows? But this is something rare today, when work and home, adult and child, can seem so very disconnected. Now, some imagine that people would rather not work at all if they could avoid it. There's a poem from Europe in the 1300s that imagines a land called Caucania, where no one needs to work, where poultry and fish are found pre-cooked and pre-seasoned, and a house has many rooms and walls. Pies and pastries form the walls, made with rich fillings, fish and meat, the tastiest a man could eat. Flour cakes are the shingles all of cloister, chamber, church, and hall. The nails are puddings rich and fat. Kings and princes might dine on that. Quaint. But you just heard an American hobo song by Harry McClintock, who went by the handle Haywire Mac, about the Big Rock Candy Mountains, where you never change your socks and the little streams of alcohol come trickling down the rocks. The brakemen have to tip their hats to the homeless wandering men. And the railway bulls, that's the officers trying to keep the hobos off, right? The railway bulls are blind. There's a lake of stew and of whiskey too. You can paddle all around it in a big canoe in the Big Rock Candy Mountains. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, the jails are made of tin, and you can walk right out again as soon as you walk in. There ain't no short-handled shovels, no axes, saws, nor picks. I'm bound to stay where you sleep all day, where they hung the jerk that invented work. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains. I don't think that work itself is the problem here. It's lousy work, ill-equipped and ill-paid work that pays enough to survive, but not much more after taxes. I'm surprised that Haywire Mac had nothing to say about taxes, though I guess hobos didn't pay them. Have you ever seen an I Heart Taxes bumper sticker? Here's one. Now I can imagine a conservative first-time visitor saying, "See, liberals love taxes." Anyway, you're more likely to see a bumper sticker that says, "I hate Jesus," or "I hate babies." Nobody loves or even likes taxes, but you might have noticed that the ox cart man budgets for them in the poem for adults. As he walks home, his pockets heavy with the year's coin for salt and taxes. I like that. Salt and taxes. The children's story puts wintergreen candy in those pockets. Sweet and delightful. But salt and taxes have a mature taste. One connects us back to life's origin in the ocean. Salt. And the other, taxes, connects us with others, with their work and their lives, and keeping up the commons that we share, like roads and bridges and waterways and those covered places to hold the market. And then there's the help we'll need in hard times or old age. Someday, all that sawing and walking and stitching will be too much for Mr. and Mrs. Oxcart, and who knows if their children will have survived to help them. Taxes can help provide some sort of, what should we call it? How about social security? But some people see all taxes as a form of stealing. And some have spent years on the TV, radio, or now the internet persuading us to see them that way too. That's their work, I guess, serving up a sort of mental fast food. It's always the same sandwich. Love religion, so long as it's the Jesus religion. Hate taxes and liberals and love guns. I don't know if that's a hate sandwich or a love one, but I do know that it has many eager consumers. Most seem unaware that Jesus himself had a soft spot for tax collectors. The Apostle Matthew made his living as one. You know, the guy who wrote the first book in the Jesus part of the Bible. He was a publican, from a Latin word that meant of the people. Publicans were private contractors, small businessmen who collected money on behalf of the Roman government in occupied Palestine. Later in Europe, they were known as tax farmers, and they got to keep a percentage of whatever they collected in the name of the crown or the feudal lord or whatever. Some were honest, but many were corrupt, often using violence or the threat of violence to enrich themselves. Tax farming was tried briefly in the U.S. under U.S. Grant's administration. Though it proved a dismal failure in the 1870s, a recent administration proposed to bring it back again in 2004. And who knows what we'll see in the near future, especially if there's ever something like a tax revolt by those states that pay in more than they take out of the current system, like Washington and California do, among others. St. Matthew probably packed a weapon when he went out to tax farm, or called armed men for help when he met with resistance. I can imagine a hit reality show built on this premise, something like Cops or Dog the Bounty Hunter. How about Publican Posse, featuring shootouts between private collectors and tax resistors, with everyone shielded from prosecution by the spread of stand your ground laws that let you shoot if you feel threatened. And what's more threatening than taxes? What a show that could be. Pow, 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 pay up now. Rat-a-tat-a-tat, I ain't doing that. Could we make taxation popular by making it a spectacle? Everything tends to be today. Or maybe it would be better to try to make it meaningful, like it is for the ox cart man, his pockets heavy with the year's coin for salt and taxes. We feel that the case for their benefit has been made for him in a clear and sober way, much better than it's been made for us. We need to do a better job with this so we can all feel like he does, that taxes are a part of the flow of economy and life in a world we share with others. Much better job. From the time we enter school or before. You should know that both the Federal Reserve and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau have done a good job creating online lessons for kids based on the Ox Cart Man picture book. You can find them online. So to keep speaking of jobs, if Social Security gets gutted like so much else, and I have to go back to work until I die, I hope I can find work like the Ox Cart Man's. It doesn't sound easy, but it feels complete. Completely integrated from day to day, year to year, and person to person. I know that he's an imaginary figure, but he's a powerful one. Because there's something about his family's life that feels so possible. We may not know anyone quite like this family, but there's also something so familiar about them. We feel that life and work could be like this. Seems like it used to be, at least for some of us. Maybe it can be again for more of us in time, if we know that is what we really want from our jobs. So, how does your work feel to you? That's a good thing to think about on Labor Day weekend, with the day off work today and maybe one tomorrow too. Maybe I'd like to close your eyes and reflect. Does your work make you feel connected? Connected to the earth and its creatures? To life and to other people? Does this church community of ours have a kind of work that's all its own? Does the work of this community, your community, make you feel connected to other communities? Maybe your church helps you feel more like Oxcart Man than you might have realized when you first heard the story. Why is that? Why would a church make you feel that way? It's because his work is holy. It's holy. There's a religious quality to everything about that industrious Oxcart family. Their work may seem old-fashioned next to ours, but the work we do can have that same religious quality. You know what religion means, right? Obligation, bond, reverence. It's most likely from a Latin word, religare. That means to bind, to tie it all together, to make connections and to honor them. The lig part of that word, religare, is like what you hear in the word ligament. Not dead string or thread for stitching next year's harness, but a living kind of fiber that actively pulls it all together. All of it. Goose feathers, sheep's wool, flax thread, taxes, and salt from the seas where life began its ongoing labor. So listen, Ronnie here hopes he was able to top off your tank for the next leg of your journey and that you'll go back on the road with your windows just a bit more clear. I thank you all for the work you do this year and the next. Work hard, work well, work alive, and wake and aware that your work is holy. Now, Ronnie's got to knock off and get himself some lunch. Shoot me a note if you're looking to get some nice rims for your car. And blessed be.
So good. Let's stand and sing Blue Boat Home.